Stable region, a partner in the war on terror and an economic ray of hope on the continent. Kenyans go to the polls Monday to elect a new president for the first time since 2007. And it's an election that will be watched far beyond the nation's borders. Special correspondent Kira Kay was in Kenya recently and filed this report.
Near Eldoret, Kenya, there is a cemetery that is small in size but large in meaning. Mary and Haran Macharia have come to visit the grave of their daughter Joyce.
I feel weak when I remember my child. It is easier to forget when I am far away from here.
On New Year's Day 2008, Mary, 2-year-old Joyce, and hundreds of others fled to the church that once stood here as an angry mob descended on them.
They stabbed us with spears and threw stones at us. We scrambled into the church, but they lit it on fire.
The Eldoret church burning was the worst case of the violence that spread across Kenya following disputed presidential elections in December 2007. Neighbors of different tribal ethnicities turned on each other, and this nation of 42 million people plunged into chaos. Mary survived but was burned over much of her body. Joyce and 35 other children and adults died inside the church.
This is the place where my daughter burnt. The white particles are the bones of my daughter.
That violence was massive for this country. You know, we talk about 1,300 people dead. I think if you count it over time, and those we don't know, it's probably around 2,000.
Maina Kiai is a human rights lawyer who collected testimony from victims.
And then there was about 600,000 people who were internally displaced from their homes. Massive, huge chaos. We were on the brink of civil war.
2 months after the violence began, international mediators brokered a power-sharing deal between the political rivals, Mwai Kibaki, a Kikuyu, and Raila Odinga, a Luo. Now, 5 years later, it is election season in Kenya once again. Odinga is staging a second bid for the presidency. He is in a very close race against Uhuru Kenyatta, son of Kenya's first president.
All of us have a responsibility to ensure that the track of reforms that we have established is maintained.
There is hope things will be different this time. In 2010, voters peacefully approved a new constitution meant to address many of the root causes of the violence.
In many ways, it takes politics away from the centre, from central government, and gives politics to the local people.
Comfort Arrow is Africa Director for the International Crisis Group.
And what you'll see in the new elections will be elections for governors, senators, and local assembly. And the idea is that politics, resource, and administration will also be managed in these various counties.
There is a reformed judiciary to arbitrate political disputes that in 2007 played out violently on the streets. And a new elections commission. Arrow says the old one had badly bungled the 2007 vote.
It was seen as compromised. It was seen as lacking independence, particularly because the president, under the old constitution, was able to unilaterally appoint commissioners. So what we've seen in the last 5 years, the creation of a new body. And today, there's a sense in which the commissioners are seen as more independent, neutral.
These changes give voters some optimism.
If we got guys who can deliver on the new constitution that has its basics on policies rather than individuals and the personalities, then it will deliver.
Much of the damage from the election violence has been rebuilt. The streets of the capital, Nairobi, bustle with the middle-class office workers that signal Africa's rise in the global economy. The government has resettled many of the people displaced by the fighting and given them money and housing to restart their lives. But in the Rift Valley, the epicenter of the violence, small, desolate camps of displaced people still dot the countryside. Within these tents, you begin to hear about the remaining fractures in Kenyan society that will take more than one election cycle to repair.
These places have...
Advocate Kefa Majeni warns that many Kenyans, like those in these camps and others who had sheltered with relatives, are stuck in limbo. Why then was it too dangerous for these people to go home if others could?
It depends with where you came from. There's quite a number of them who have been able to go back. But those who are along the boundaries between intercommunities, majority of them, even up to now, even some of the houses which have been reconstructed by the government, people have not gone back. And secondly, also there has been the whole problem of lack of psychosocial support.
While some families living at this camp are still on the resettlement list, others pooled their government payouts to buy the land under their shacks.
The government...
3 of Joyce Mojito's 8 children have died of illness here. Still, she says she would rather live in this camp environment than risk returning to her old village.
I like this place. It's peaceful. I rest well here. I can't go back.
Kenyans are making sure they're not victims again by separating from the others, by being only among your own, so you feel safer then.
Maina Kiai says these fears are driven by political manipulation based on ethnicity.
Ethnicity messes everything up because it gives leaders an easy tool to mobilize people. So we basically believe that if our person, if somebody from my ethnic group is elected as president, then we will benefit. Actually, you can see benefits to an ethnic group when the president has come from that group. So that's been a very real thing.
This was a settlement scheme. So
Tirop Couture, who works with Maina Kiai, brought me to Tegea, where historic grievances over land ownership are stoked in a frustrating election-related cycle.
the first year, people are doing reconciliation. The second year, things are okay. The third year, by the fourth year, the elections are coming. So there is a lot of talk of one community leaving this place and so on. Then the fifth year, there is violence.
Why?
Because that is the time the politicians have a fertile ground to incite one group against the other.
After the last elections, ethnic Kikuyu and Kisii farmers were violently evicted. Many fled the area entirely, while others grouped together for safety in numbers. Tegea town swelled to 3 times its population.
We would like to rebuild our houses back where we came from, but we need security first.
Tabitha Kwamboka's home was torched. She saw women raped and a neighbor decapitated.
The kind of life I'm leading now is so different from the life I led before the elections. As we approach another election, we're afraid, especially we women who were targeted.
These communities have stayed together for a long time. Both of them have rights to be here. So they should not be fighting. They are equally rich or equally poor. So it's unfortunate. It's the leadership that is playing out these differences.
Maina Kiai says tensions between communities also remain high because there has been very little effort to bring perpetrators of the violence to justice. Only 4 cases of election-related murder have been tried in local courts. One was for the killing of Mary Macharia's daughter and the others in the Eldoret church attack. 4 men were charged, but they were acquitted for lack of evidence. Mary and Heron have started a new life in a new town with their young daughter, Mercy. But they still struggle with the past.
I have not seen any justice, and I have not seen any culprit being punished to serve as a lesson and to deter people from engaging in such immoral acts again.
Because Kenya did not make good on its promise to create a domestic tribunal for the election violence, the International Criminal Court stepped in. 4 men have been indicted for crimes against humanity, including presidential candidate Uhuru Kenyatta and his running mate William Ruto. The indictments have become an ethnic rallying call.
These 2 gentlemen especially did a fabulous job of politicizing and turning this indictment by International Criminal Court into a positive. And now they began playing victim. They began saying it's the international community against my tribe.
But 54% of Kenyans support the ICC trials. Some, like Joseph Ndege, worry about international backlash.
We have been told immediately we fought criminals who were going to be discriminated. The country will lose everything, even donors will suspend aid. So we're very careful. We want to watch out what we want to do.
As another election approaches, some groups in Kenya are working to keep ethnic divides from again spiraling into violence. The Kibera slum in Nairobi saw some of the worst fighting 5 years ago. Local resident Jane Anyango says rumors are flying of an uptick in the sale of machetes.
The reports that we are hearing is that people are scared and people are strategizing. Like, let me equip myself so in case it happens, then this is what I'm going to do.
But in a small community hall, Jane and her neighbors of varying ethnicity have gathered to share information and strategize about ways to keep their streets calm.
And if possible, find a way to have the youths who have these firearms surrender them.
We are trying to normalize the fact that I'm from my community and you are from your community, but we must learn to coexist, to accept that all these political parties exist, but at the end of the day, we are Kenyans and we must protect Kenya.
The election on March 4th may be too soon for Kenya to leave behind ethnic politics, but it will be a test for a new constitution. And, if violence-free, may offer a new start for a country trying to escape its recent difficult history.
Kira's story was produced